I do find it interesting in this conversation, though, about Democrats finding their, free market bona fides all of a sudden. I mean, these are the same party that's been arguing that corporations need to pay higher taxes. I mean, effectively, a tariff is just a tax on corporate activity. That's what it is. And Democrats for years have argued for higher corporate tax rates, and now they're arguing against effectively a tax on corporate activity. I think if I were Donald Trump, I might next week say, you know what? I'll meet you on this. Let's slash the corporate tax rate in half, and it'll mitigate your concerns about the tariffs. I bet you wouldn't find one Democrat who would agree to it, even though it would be an amazing idea. I do find it interesting in this conversation, though, about Democrats finding their, free market bona fides all of a sudden. I mean, these are the same party that's been arguing that corporations need to pay higher taxes. I mean, effectively, a tariff is just a tax on corporate.
Oh, yeah, that's better. That's 38 because there's 5 of us. You can catch the all-day episode tomorrow at 9 p.m. on CNN. Thank you very much for watching Newsnight. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with our conversation show, Table for 5. You can also catch me anytime on your favorite social media, X, Instagram, and TikTok. In the meantime, Laura Coates Live starts right now.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Coates. And tonight, President Trump's tariffs, they are bringing more chaos, eating further into the 401ks of millions of Americans, sending markets deeper into the red. And now the bears are coming out.
Stocks falling off a cliff for a second straight session and closing right about at the lows.
We're coming on the air with breaking news about the economy and another brutal day on Wall Street. The market's tanking right now.
The story of the hour, steep selling again today. The Dow entered correction and the NASDAQ has fallen into bear market territory.
Brutal isn't even the right word for it, is it? All 3 of the major indexes dropped more than 5% today. And that, by the way, that's in addition to yesterday's huge plunge. One high-profile trader is describing just how unprecedented all of this really is and what this means, especially for people who are closer to retirement.
You have to look at it as a mini crash, without any question. Basically, the average person out there who is thinking about retiring in the next couple of years, who 8 weeks ago was looking at their portfolio, so many percent, double-digit percentage higher, going, you know what, now I can finally retire? There's no explanation to this.
If America went through an operation, remember when Trump claimed that? Well, the recovery isn't looking too good right now, is it? And it might be because China, well, they just punched the wound. It's matching the new reciprocal tariff from Trump by slapping a 34% tariff on all U.S. products. You heard that right. 34%. Now, I'm assuming this isn't the prognosis Trump was looking for, right? In just a minute, we'll have Anthony Scaramucci, a.k.a. The Mooch, go up against Kevin O'Leary, a.k.a. Mr. Wonderful, to debate Trump's tariff gamble. And gamble, indeed, it is. And, of course, what happens next. Now, you out there might be wondering, what was Trump doing during all of this market upheaval? Well, he wasn't at the White House, glued to the television screens, watching the markets or huddling with advisors, it seems. No, he was playing golf. And Maggie Haberman is telling us why.
I think long ago he stopped caring about certain optics, and he's made very clear during this presidency he's going to do what he wants. He is not messaging this in a way that suggests that he understands what average people might be going through right now. And part of what it is he is convinced he is right. He is convinced he's going to show people he is right.
For the president, he did take the time to attack Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. And he's accusing him of playing politics and demanding that he cut interest rates. As for Powell, well, he's now warning about inflation and says he's not going to change anything until the ship steadies.
You have inflation is going to be moving up and growth is going to be slowing, but it isn't really, to me, it's not clear at this time what the appropriate path for monetary policy will be. And we're going to need to wait and see how this plays out before we can start to make those adjustments.
I'm wondering when wait and see made anyone feel good. That phrase. Because right now it has so many Americans freaking out. And one of the country's biggest banks, I'm talking about J.P. Morgan, Well, they're now predicting an outright recession this year. And CNN's Fareed Zakaria points out it's more than just the stock market that's going sideways.
This may be the biggest economic policy-making error of my lifetime. I've never seen anything like this. The stock market, the bond market, the commodity markets, everybody is signaling that this was a disaster, and it's going to be more pain to come.
Stocks, bonds, commodities, oh my. But the stock market, the commodities, the bonds, none of that has the White House changing its position. No, they're sticking to its guns. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, well, he is now throwing out a number for how much annual revenue this tariffs could actually bring in.
Could it be anywhere from $300 billion to $600 billion a year? Sure.
Okay, so that's meaningful revenue.
Very meaningful. But what will happen with tariffs over time, the ultimate goal of the tariffs, and the president says it all the time, bring your factory here. That's the best solution toward getting away from a tariff wall.
We know time will tell if we even get to that point, or if the Trump administration will stop playing this kind of game. But you know what one game they won't be playing? Nintendo. It's delaying U.S. pre-orders for the new Switch 2 because of the uncertainty around the tariffs. So while Trump is hoping the economy sounds like this, right now, it's really more like this. And you know what millions of Americans are hoping? They're hoping it doesn't end up like this. With me now on this Friday night to debate it all, former White House Communications Director and founder of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci, and also the chairman of O'Leary Ventures and Shark Tank Judge, Mr. Wonderful, a.k.a. Kevin O'Leary. Glad to have you both here. I'm really curious about how both of you are viewing this. I want to start with you, Anthony. I mean, these numbers, the S&P, they lost, what, $6 trillion, stocks lost $6 trillion over the last 2 days. How much worse could this get?
Well, listen, I mean, it's 10 trillion globally, and if these tariffs stay in place, I mean, Kevin and probably Secretary of State are going to make the case that it's not going to happen and they'll find the way to negotiation, but they've already caused a tremendous amount of distrust in the system about the way America is handling itself. And so you have to tell me, we're keeping them in place. We're going to go into a very steep recession. You'll probably have a drop off of at least 2% in growth. You'll knock unemployment up. And of course, these tariffs, despite what the president's saying, are consumption taxes on the American people. And so what ends up happening, it eats up the living standards of the lower and middle income people. So it's an unmitigated disaster. It was tried by Herbert Hoover in the 1930s. And of course, it steepened the depression, and it also caused deflation, which is also another nightmare that we're going to have to be careful of as well. So this is stupid policy. And by the way, if President Harris was doing this, Kevin O'Leary would be going crazy right now. If 80 days into the Harris administration, we dropped $10 trillion of market capitalization and all of our trading partners lost faith with us, Kevin would be having a heart attack over it. But go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Kevin, how are you feeling tonight? Can you defend the tariffs?
You know, I try and focus on the signal, not the noise. Harris is not president. Trump is. And if you don't like him 12 years ago, you don't like him now. And I get it. I completely get it. But that's not the issue. Let's talk about the situation here. Reciprocal tariffs that have been put in place, they're basically ours for some country. We've got 60 countries on the list. Already, you've heard from Thailand, Cambodia, the EU, and Senator Kenney in Louisiana calling for zero tariffs between Canada and the United States. The whole point is it's a negotiation. And if you can get to zero tariffs, that's the best outcome. That's called free trade. That's 50% of why these tariffs are put on. So I'd argue to you, yeah, I hate volatility. I don't like it when the market corrects, but the market corrects all the time. And it generally goes down 15 to 20%. It's proven over 100 years plus. It's a great buying opportunity. And we just got the jobs numbers. The economy is just fine. Now, maybe you don't like watching sausage being made. Obviously, Trump doesn't care. He's an unusual character that way. A lot of these negotiations are done in private quarters. Trump doesn't care. You saw the first of that with Lewinsky. Was, that's just the way he operates. So I don't care about the noise. I care about the outcome. Now let's take North America.
Well, Kevin, I've asked you though. Hold on, before you get to that. Hold on, before you get to that. You do realize that there is a bit of a luxury in not caring about how the sausage is made if you live and die by the amount of money you have in your savings account, checking account, let alone being able to dabble in the stock market. But I want to address 2 points with you, Scaramucci, to what Kevin had to say. And one of them is about market corrections. Yes, the market corrections can be normal, but is this normal, number one? And number two, if it is about leverage, and this is a negotiation tactic, Trump saying the tariffs are here to stay, doesn't that undermine it?
Well, there's just so many things. The first thing is it's not reciprocal tariffs. They took the amount of exports the U.S. has into other countries, and they did a differential with the exports coming into the United States. And then they came up with a factor that has nothing to do with the tariffs, and they're saying that there's 60% here and 50% there. It's a bunch of arbitrary nonsense. And so it's not reciprocal tariffs. So let's get that on the table. Number two, this is a more meaningful correction. Kevin's been in the markets for a very long time. He knows this is a mini 2008 crash. Last point I'll make, and then I'll turn it over to Kevin. The risk premium in the global markets has now gone up because the global market participants cannot trust the Trump administration. They put the tariffs on, they take the tariffs off. They have no idea what they're doing. The trust has been lost. I actually think this is part of the situation that's irreparable. And Kevin knows that Mark Carney's going to win the election as prime minister in his hometown up there. And Mark Carney's not going to roll over for Donald Trump. I mean, why are you fighting with our best ally? I mean, that's the thing I think is one of the most upsetting parts of all this.
Mooch, at one point, and Ken, I want you to address that point, but there is, you talk about trust. I'd love for you to address this. It's not just the global allies or people around the world. A friend of our show, of course, Andrew Yang, he tweeted this tonight saying, heard from multiple big company CEOs that they are making plans to pull back spending and hiring or lay people off based on uncertainty unless there is an announcement on tariffs by Monday. Kevin, what's your reaction to that? Do you think the trust issues with these CEOs is something to address from this administration, or should they not be this worried?
They shouldn't be worried. At the end of the day, the opportunity is immense. We just talked about Carney in Canada. He is not an elected official. He is a stopgap measure. He has no mandate for the Canadian people. His party wiped out the Canadian economy. It's highly likely he won't win the election, so I don't agree with that. But the opportunity between Canada and the United States to put those two economies together is immense, and that would be zero tariffs both ways, north and south. People don't see that right now because they're gnashing their teeth, and the frenzy is in the middle of an election with the Canadian people, and they're using Trump as fulcrum. Carney's basically saying, look, I know I wiped out the economy, and I know 25% of you are now living in poverty, and I know 41% of the Canadian dollar has been wiped out by my policies, but don't worry about that. Let's just stay on the focus of the evil Trump south of the border. I will save you from him. Canadians aren't that stupid. They figured out that their biggest trading partner is the United States, biggest ally for 150 years. And at the end of the day, this will too, just like a marriage. Sometimes there's a tiff, and certainly Anthony knows that, and you kiss and make up. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, while we're not on a couch, let's get on one for a second. Anthony, do you believe that?
I never tiff with you, Kevin.
Oh, this is a beautiful moment, a beautiful marriage and friendship. But tell me what you really think about that.
In the poly markets, Carney's at 83%. So Kevin knows that Trump killed his conservative buddy up there. He just knows that. But the second thing is he also knows, because he's a market participant, he knows that CEOs are saying, okay, the guy's crazy, but he's going after law firms. He's going after the free press. I got to keep my mouth shut. The banks are all quietly telling people a recession is coming. JP Morgan, the boldest bank, said 60% chance now of a recession. All Trump had to do is lightly deregulate, strengthen the border, extend his tax cuts, and he would have touched off an economic boom. The economy was actually ramping up. The nonsense that he's going to disintegrate the global economy, years of integration, is a falsehood. And Kevin is the one that told me, what are they going to do with the Alberta crude? What are they going to do? They're going to stop sending it to the United States, and then the United States is going to take all the refineries down and rebuild them because there's no more Alberta crude. This is a nonsensical trade war that is damaging lower and middle income people. And it was totally unnecessary. The president had the opportunity to touch off a boom, and he's creating a self-inflicted recession.
Why do you think that appears to be either the motivation or at least the outcome at this point in time, Kevin? I mean, you mentioned earlier the idea that he's an interesting individual who doesn't care the same way perhaps other people care, and I'm paraphrasing what you said. Why do you think that is, and will it ultimately serve the American people and economy?
I think it will. You know, the volatility is brutal. Nobody likes to see the stock market go down, but as we know from history, it's always proven to be a buying opportunity. Never count out the American economy. Those job numbers were a surprise to the upside. So the economy's doing just fine right now. Now, it depends how long these tariffs stay on. I say 50% of them get negotiated away very, very quickly. Because you got to remember something, if you're calculating in the political side of this, Trump has a majority right now for another 18 months before the midterms. All this volatility, the speed at which these policies are coming in place is because he knows he may not enjoy that majority after the midterm election. So you got to get this work done now. I don't think these tariffs are going to be long-lived at all. And I think everybody's coming to the table very, very quickly. So you're getting this done at a breakneck speed, and people are very uncomfortable with it. But to actually turn the U.S. economy into a recession, that doesn't happen overnight. This would have to last for years. You don't like the gnashing of teeth and the volatility. I get it. And let's face it, Tony, you're not a friend of Trump's, and I'm not even shilling for politicians, whether it's north or south of the border. I shill for policy.
You're not a friend of Trump either, my man. There's no friends to Trump.
What is the point you're trying to suggest about his friendship? That he's biased in his opinion? Is that what you're trying to suggest? Because his statements so far have been about the economy and the numbers.
But I'm also pointing out objectively that the president was perceived as pro-business. He could have taken a pro-business stance, but he decided to go to like Russian, Prussian dictator circa 1890, and he's trying to bully the rest of the world as opposed to gradually adjusting the trading system. I'm all for surgical repair of the trading system and surgical tariffs that are effective in protecting our workers, but I'm not for disintegrating and disavowing the David Ricardo principle of global trade. It's just absolutely irrationally ridiculous. And by the way, it's actually mean. It's almost as if Forrest Gump and Jacob Marley got together and had a baby, and the baby's name is Donald Trump. It's stupid and it's mean, and it's going to cost America soft power everywhere. And this is another big factor that I don't think Kevin and Mr. Trump, President Trump, understand.
While we all try to process that visual, we're going to take a break because I need to process that particular baby you talked about just now. We're going to get a quick break in. We're going to get more from both Kevin and Anthony in just a moment, including how TikTok plays into all of this. Did Trump's tariffs blow a potential deal in the 11th hour? Our debate continues next.
My happy place. One place I could truly be myself.
I want people to experience this beautifully diverse city. There's no
immersed. With Lovesac, you make the rules.
Welcome back. Have I got news for you? New tomorrow on CNN.
All right, we're back with Kevin and Anthony. Gentlemen, I want to read for you what the Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote today. Here's the headline. U.S. tariffs make Xi Jinping's day. They say that Xi is winning, of course. And, quote, China's authoritarian systems means Mr. Xi probably can ride out whatever political or social pain might result from higher unemployment or slower economic growth in a trade war. Kevin, let me begin with you. Is there a risk that China gets the upper hand after all of this? I mean, are they winning?
I'd say China's a more precarious position than the U.S. is. The U.S. economy is much stronger than the Chinese right now. I don't think they want a protracted trade war. But China is not just about tariffs. Since joining the WTO back in 2020, they have not abided by the rules, not one single year. IP law, access to markets, litigation, compliance with U.S. securities laws on the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, implementation of golden shares in Chinese products and companies which are not permitted on our U.S. exchanges, access to our markets, financial markets, we don't have theirs. There's a lack of a reciprocal playing field that we're trying to solve for here. And I think that's now finally come to the fore. These negotiations are much different than China. We're in an economic war with them. They don't play by the rules. They're probably going to have to come to the table before this is over. And that is a good thing.
Anthony, do you agree? I mean, or are these tariffs having a different impact? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to cede the point to Kevin on China. I do think that there has been inequities in the trading relationship. I think President Trump was right that we needed to fix those, and we probably needed to fix those in the early 2000s. But I think where I would be worried if I were President Trump, frankly, I'm worried if I was Kevin, is that the Chinese are now going to our trading partners who we're scorching, and they're trying to replace us with our trading partners. And I don't like that at all. And I think it's a competitive heads up pursuant to what the Wall Street Journal is saying. But I do agree with Kevin and President Trump. And frankly, the Biden administration agreed with this as well, which is why they left many of those tariffs in place on China. But I think what we're doing now, this overstep, is allowing for China to potentially get a leg up on us with our allies, which I don't like.
Let's talk about TikTok, gentlemen, because this is continues to be a major focus for so many. I mean, sources are telling us that the White House was about to announce a TikTok deal, but then the tariffs on China derailed it. Kevin, what does that tell you about how these negotiations might ultimately play out?
Actually, the TikTok deal's a little more complicated than that. I'm obviously in one of the syndicates is attempting to buy it. We have an issue with the page 5 of the Supreme Court order, top paragraphs, anybody can read it online, where it specifically says you cannot use the algorithm, the Chinese algorithm. So the interpretation of the current deal was the idea that you just took a copy of the code, gave American ownership to it, up to 20% can be held by China. Those are laws that we already have in place in media companies. But if you are subject to the penalty imposed by the Supreme Court and Congress, that's $850 billion of penalties a year. There's not a single S&P company that can sustain that without bankruptcy. So we're looking for some kind of indemnification from Congress or a slight change to the law that maybe they could put into the Reconciliation Act and get 51 votes. Or if not, I don't think you can use the Chinese algorithm. And so all of this has to be worked out.
Kevin,
Trump was right to punt it for 75 days. It was
while you wait for that,
there's so much interest. There's so many people willing to buy it.
You know you hear me talking, Kevin. Look, I know you're mentioning the point that there was the delay at the deadline by 75 days, but do you think that Trump, if he had a deal in hand, I understand the issues that you're taking, did these tariffs blow the deal?
He doesn't have a deal in hand because Xi hasn't ruled yet. This company has a golden share. By the way, I don't think you've seen it yet, but Lindsey Graham is about to bring a bill specifically about golden shares, and it's nasty, very nasty. There'll be about $800 billion worth of Chinese companies delisted off the NASDAQ.
I know you'd love to do a deal. I know you've mentioned this in the past on this very aspect of TikTok. Anthony, I'm curious about how you see this in particular as well. Trump has extended the deadline to save TikTok by 75 days. It does, of course, kick the can down the road. But why do you think Trump has not been able to seal the deal yet? Obviously, to Kevin's point, people can want what they want. China has to essentially sign off on this. But is there more that Trump could be doing?
Okay, I'm just going to give you my editorial opinion. They're never giving up their algorithm. They're never selling that to a U.S. entity. It's just not going to happen. They'll shut it down in the United States before they would do that. This is weapons-grade espionage. This is weapons-grade data retrieval. And it's also weapons-grade propaganda where it's changing the hearts and minds of our young people. And so it's very dangerous stuff, so much so that the president was against it. he got 80 or so congressmen, Republican congressmen, to vote against it and ban TikTok. And so I don't really understand why he's for it right now. I guess because they helped him win the election or something like that. But this is one of those cases where you got to look at it. Is it good for America or is it bad for America? And TikTok is bad for America. And the Chinese are never letting that thing go with that algorithm. So we'll see what happens, but that's my
I can't
prediction.
ignore the smile that's on Mr. Wonderful's face as you hear about the dangers that Scaramucci is describing. What's your reaction to that?
7.1 million American businesses, including all of mine, spend 60% of their advertising dollars each week on TikToks. It supports countless families in America. There's no need to wipe it out. Obviously, and I agree, it's very unlikely that Mooch is saying that they won't sell the algorithm. Okay, if they don't sell the algorithm, you've seen this movie before. It was called Skype when Microsoft rewrote the code from scratch. We'll have to do the same thing here. But wiping out TikTok is not a good idea for America at all because it's a very strong competitor in social media and has the lowest customer acquisition costs. So I'm fighting for small business in America. Everybody knows I'm an advocate of that. And I have my own companies on it as well. So part of the contingency and why I got involved with McCourt in the first place on this, he spent millions getting ready for taking this code and making it safe, if you want to call it that, and compliant with the law. So if we can do that, that'll solve the problem. Everything has a risk. But if they don't sell the algorithm, but are willing to sell the content, the accounts, the brand, there's a way to fix this. And that's the path of least resistance. So in 75 days, we'll know what's going to happen. But it's very hard to say you want to wipe out 7 million small businesses in America. That is un-American.
Well, we'll have to see how all this plays out. There's still 75 days and wonder how many after that. Congress has spoken. The Supreme Court has as well.
He's getting the last word with that, Laura?
Clearly, you don't want him to. What do you want to say?
Last word?
Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's all right. I mean, he's got to. He can have the last word. I would like Kevin to buy it actually, and I'd like to get rid of their algorithm. But I would like to bet Kevin right now, a gentleman's bet, that the Chinese are never letting this go. Can we have that bet, Kev?
You know, that would be negative, Mooch. I don't want to be negative. I'm a positive guy. And, you know, I don't want to bet against myself. Okay. I've never bet against myself. And so, you know, I'm an optimist. We're going to solve this problem. And
I want you to get it, Kev. I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong, Kevin. I want to be wrong.
Well, to quote Wesley
Stay
Snipes
right where
in
you are.
Pastor 57, always bet on black. We'll end it there with that one. Anthony, Kevin, thank you both. Call each other. He'll get on a plane in 4 hours, he said. Call him. Text him. Get me in the group chat, especially if there's money involved.
I'm in New York. I'm coming to your restaurant.
We're going to. All right. I'm looking forward to it, Kev. You know,
this is
you know
beautiful.
I love you.
I'm just sitting here facilitating their love fest. Thanks, brothers. Still ahead tonight, small cracks emerging on the Hill over Trump's tariffs. A House Republican now plotting a move to get Congress to step in. Will it go anywhere? And later, immigration officials arrest a mother in Maryland as her daughter records the whole thing. What DHS is saying and the family's response.
Smells amazing. Care and prescriptions quickly from home. With Dutch, you can talk to vets same day, even nights and weekends, and get medicine to help your best friend feel better. Plus, you'll get free shipping and unlimited vet calls and messaging. Dutch, affordable vet care that's always there. Get a year of vet care for under $100 with code PETS.
The War on Government, a Fareed Zakaria special, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
Trump's tariffs are surely putting pressure on Republicans. And, you know, cracks within the party, well, they're already emerging. Listen to Senator Ted Cruz today, who's, of course, as you know, a prominent Trump supporter.
If we go into a recession, particularly a bad recession, 2026 in all likelihood politically would be a bloodbath.
Well, today, CNN learned that Republican Congressman Don Bacon will introduce a bill to reassert Congress's power over tariffs, a companion bill to one already introduced in the Senate. But will enough Republicans rally in support? Well, will he even get a vote? President Trump, as you know, is holding firm, posting on Truth Social, only the weak will fail. Joining me now is CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings and former Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. Good to see you both this Friday night. Scott, let me ask you this. Look, the chances of enough House Republicans jumping in to try and rein in Trump, they are slim, perhaps slim to none. But should they at least have the conversation? I mean, how much pain are they willing to take?
Well, it's a worthwhile conversation. It's also happening in the Senate. You had Chuck Grassley the other day joining with Maria Cantwell on a bill that would have forced tariffs to be ratified by Congress, and if they weren't, they would expire after a certain amount of time. You heard Rand Paul, my senator in Kentucky, on the floor of the Senate when he voted against the Canadian tariffs the other night, giving a passionate argument about why Congress really should be involved in this conversation. So obviously, you know, whether you think tariffs are good policy or bad policy, the issue here is, should the president have unilateral authority to do it? And you think about it, it is a sweeping power. I mean, we don't really have that many powers in our system where the president can unilaterally do something this broad. The pardon power is one, and this one has obviously global implications. You know, there's Republicans all over this debate. You know, some are adamantly opposed, some are lukewarm on it, some are nervous, some are, you know, all in on it. It's really interesting because Donald Trump is implanting effectively new policy DNA inside of a party that's been highly skeptical of tariffs for several decades.
Several decades, indeed. And Sabrina, I mean, we've talked a lot about Democrats and how they seem to have been in search of a message as of late. You heard Senator Ted Cruz talk about a political bloodbath that could be predicted. The idea of Republicans now essentially saying something different if they are in full support of these tariffs, and they have for decades. What should Democrats be saying or responding to?
Look, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I agree with Ted Cruz. I think if the economy continues to go the way it does, if we see the markets crash and continue to go down that we've seen today, what's going to happen is that Democrats are going to have a unifying message going into the midterms, that this is an impact to workers, that this is an impact to American consumers. And, you know, certainly the markets are reacting, but at the end of the day, you know, Democrats are going to continue to have to drive that message forward. No one, I think Democrats and Republicans don't want to see a hit to the economy, don't want to see our workforce hurt more, but that's exactly what these tariffs are going to do. These tariffs are a tax. These companies that are going to have to be forced to pay these tariffs they're going to push that onto the consumer. So I think it's really important that Democrats are uniting around this and find a unifying message here as we head into the midterms.
I think both parties would be prudent to make sure they're focusing on the impact on the individual American consumer and people, as opposed to just sort of the political volleying that normally takes place. And having said that, though, I'm old enough to remember, as both of you are, how there was tracking of how many golf tournaments or times that presidents have played golf when major things are going down. Scott, Democrats, they're pouncing on the fact that President Trump was playing golf as these markets were tumbling. Do you worry about the optics at all?
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, presidents play golf. Joe Biden played golf. Joe Biden spent most of his term on vacation. I mean, no. I mean, this is a common parlor game that's played. I don't think it makes a difference to anybody. I do find it interesting in this conversation, though, about Democrats finding their, you know, free market bona fides all of a sudden. I mean, these are the same party that's been arguing that corporations need to pay higher taxes. I mean, effectively, a tariff is just a tax on corporate activity. That's what it is. And Democrats for years have argued for higher corporate tax rates, and now they're arguing against effectively a tax on corporate activity. I think if I were Donald Trump, I might next week say, you know what, I'll meet you on this. Let's slash the corporate tax rate in half, and it'll mitigate your concerns about the tariffs. I bet you wouldn't find one Democrat who would agree to it, even though it would be an amazing idea.
Well, Sabrina, I want to hear your take on that. One, in the sense that, do you really think no one cares about the optics of golfing while this is happening? And number two, I understood Democrats' message in part to be everyone playing their fair share, not to impose something that would be detrimental to the average American consumer. What's your thought?
Well, Scott, I mean, while the president was playing golf, my parents watched their retirement savings go down. So I think, you know, there are people all around this country, my parents included, my in-laws included, that are watching their savings continue to dip in the market. And these are people that have worked their entire lives for this. At the same time, take your point on companies and corporations. Again, these are corporations that are going to shift that tariff to the consumer. And at the end of the day, what we're talking about is prices going up, the price of clothing going up, the price of groceries going up, electronics. So when you go into Target to buy the TV that you want, or you go in to buy the groceries that you want, those are prices that are going to go up thanks to the Trump administration. So I think, going back to the larger point on Democrats, the Trump administration is certainly giving Democrats something to rally around. I think we're finding our footing here of being the party that delivers for working class folks. And at the end of the day, stability. You're seeing this administration continue to alienate, partners in the Indo-Pacific, like South Korea and Japan, moving towards China because they are afraid of what these tariffs are going to do to their economy and to the consumers that they provide, different products to.
This situation has everyone on pins and needles across the board. Scott, Sabrina, glad to have you both on. We'll look forward to what happens next week. Hopefully look forward. Thank you both. Up next, a daughter witnesses her mother getting arrested by immigration officials. Tonight, how DHS is defending the arrest and her family's response. Next.
I take you, body, in sickness and in health, for as long as we shall live.
Today, I choose us how to screen us for colon cancer. Here, on my land, not theirs. Give me colon.
Video of a 52-year-old single mother of 4 named Elsie Noemi Berrios being detained by federal agents during a traffic stop.
No, you know. Deja que lo revienten. No, if it's against. No. You guys cannot take her just because you guys want to. No te preocupes, Karen. No te preocupes. Tranquilo. Tranquila, mamá. You guys are. Háblale a Ulises. No se preocupe. No se preocupe. Wait! Don't grab her like that! Don't grab her like that! Yo voy bien. Don't grab her.
CNN did reach out to the Department of Homeland Security to ask why she was detained. They responded, quote, "This individual has been identified as an associate of the vicious MS-13 gang. Americans can rest assured that she is off our streets and locked up," unquote. Now, tonight, her family is denying these allegations, telling us their mother came to the U.S. from El Salvador 8 years ago. They also said that she has a valid work authorization and no criminal record. Joining me now to discuss is Elsie's daughter, who recorded the video that you just saw, Karen Cruz Berrios. Karen, I'm going to ask you in a moment about what happened, but I do want to have you respond to what the DHS is claiming about your mom. They're claiming that she's an associate of MS-13. Are you aware of any ties that she has? Is there any truth to that as far as you know?
No, it's false. My mother, she works really hard since she was really little, and she never had anything to do with gangs or anything like that. And that's why we came to the United States, because she doesn't want anything to do, because back then when we were younger, there was a lot of gangs. So she brought us here for that part, for nothing to like happen to us or anything. So my mom, of course, she wouldn't not be associated with them, because I feel like if she was, she would not, nobody would be asking for her. Like friends from Maryland or people from church or people that know her from here or from our country wouldn't be asking, how are we doing? Why did they take her? I feel like they wouldn't even be asking why did they take her if they would know, right? If they had a reason. But clearly I don't think they have a reason, because I feel everybody would know, because everyone is asking like why Is she okay? They didn't have rights to take her. They didn't have a warrant. They didn't have anything. And
well, Karen,
everyone
on
is
that
just
point,
saying
I want to ask you about that, Karen. I don't want to interrupt you because I can't get the
course.
video out of my mind. We've now seen this. We've seen the window be broken while she was in it. We hear her telling you to calm down, not to worry as well. We can hear you crying as she tells you and tries to, well, do what every mother would do to comfort her daughter. Can I ask you, did you ever get a reason as to why they had either pulled you over or why they were taking her?
Of course not. The supervisor you see right there, he sent one of the officers. The officer came to my window and he asked for IDs, and I was trying to give him my ID and he didn't want my ID. He was asking for my mother's ID. And I said, "Are you the police?" And he said, "Yes." And I was like, "I don't think so." And then he was
Is that
like,
why
"I
you started
am." I was like,
recording?
"I don't think so." Yes. I was like, "I don't think so," but I did give him my mother's ID. And because I know it was a little suspicious, so I started recording the whole thing. And then that's when the supervisor that you see that's talking to my mom and pulling her out of the car, he tells the other person, he was telling my mom, get out the car, get out the car. And that's when I'm asking, do you have a warrant? Do you have a warrant? And he's telling me, "Oh, I'm not talking to you."
What went through your mind when the window was broken? I mean, had you been afraid of this moment?
And yes, I was very scared, and it made me really upset because my mother never done anything wrong for her to be able to like be treated inhumane, because I can call this inhumane. Not like they didn't. I feel like they didn't do it professional. They're not doing their work professional. Not only with my mother, they're doing this with a lot of people. Especially Hispanics that are here just to work. They work really hard for their families to be able to give them a better life, and they're just doing this. I don't even have a reason because why, you know? But at the same time, I was really proud of my mom because she has diabetes and something else, and she takes pills for that, and sometimes she can get like really bad. But there, she was really calm, and she was the one calming me down when it's usually me calming her down. So I was really proud of her for doing that. And that.
Well, Karen, have you
But
talked
she
to her
knows.
since she has been taken?
Yes, I have talked to her.
What is she feeling?
She was very upset, but she was telling me that she believes in God and that she knows she never done anything wrong on our country or here, and that her record is very clean, and that they should have nothing to be accusing her of, and she knows she hasn't done anything, so she has a lot of faith, and I hope everything goes well too, because I know how my mom is, and nobody knows her more than I do. So it's like nobody can really say how she is when they don't really know her.
Well, Karen, you know your mother best, and thank you for sharing what that experience was like. Karen Cruz Berrios, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Again, we're going to keep an eye on this story and what happens to Elsie. And should the DHS reveal any evidence to support their claim of MS-13 ties, we will, of course, follow that up. Still ahead, a new spotlight on Anna Delvey. Remember her? The con artist turned celebrity? We have a sneak peek at Jake Tapper's latest United States of Scandal episode next.
Tell us about accepting bribes.
The stuff he did that was completely legal destroys democracy.
I'm still not sure that you're repentant. I have nothing to hide. If he hadn't been such a, he would have gotten away with it.
They would abuse her on television.
It was this unholy combination of overwhelming greed and money.
It's not a bribe, it's trading favors.
United States of Scandal with Jake Tapper, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
Your shipping manager left to find themselves, leaving you lost.